When thou art with me, I am protected, though it be from an enemy horde. And we'll have our reading from Rays of the One Light.
Nance, we going to read today? Would you like to?
Is this working?
Yes.
Yes. So, you want me to read it? Someone else read it?
Sure, want to read it?
Truth. Many are the pathways of truth. One more, I think. 39. This reading is from Rays of the One Light, weekly commentaries on the Bible and the Bhagavad Gita. Swami Kriyananda. Truth is one and eternal. Realize oneness with it in your deathless self within. The following commentary is based on the teachings of Paramhansa Yogananda. On the dedication page of Swami Kriyananda's book, The Path, appears the following account. A group of Paramhansa Yogananda's disciples had gone with him to see a movie about the life of Gyandev, a great saint of medieval India. Afterwards, they gathered and listened to the master explain certain subtler aspects of that inspiring story. A young man in the group mentioned another film he had seen years earlier in India about the life of Mirabai, a famous woman saint. If you'd seen that movie, he exclaimed, you wouldn't even have liked this one. The guru rebuked him. Why make such comparisons? The lives of great saints manifest in various ways the same one God. The Bible contains a similar account in the Gospel of St. Luke, chapter 9. And John said, Master, we saw one casting out devils in thy name, and we forbade him, because he followed not with us. And Jesus said unto him, Forbid him not, for he that is not against us is for us. The more central a truth, the greater the number of contexts in which it can be applied. Truth is like a pure white light, containing within itself the full spectrum of the rainbow. Let no one tell you what your path to God ought to be. Many are the paths. Select your own according to the dictates of your own nature, no matter how out of step that puts you with other people. Sri Krishna in the 3rd chapter of the Bhagavad Gita states, trying even unsuccessfully to fill one's own spiritual duty, dharma, is better than pursuing successfully the duties of others. Better death itself in the pursuance of one's own duties. The pursuance of another's duties is fraught with spiritual danger. Thus, through Holy Scripture, God has spoken to mankind. Om, Om, Om.
Thank you, Dhuti. So I'd like to begin with a prayer poem from Whispers from Eternity. As we celebrate, this beautiful teachings of Yogananda, and he said many pathways are for truth. All of the pathways are for truth, and that we have to live our own dharma and listen to our own heart and our own intuition and trust in our own selves. Such a beautiful thing. It's not about separateness. We're all in this together, and tuning into that is what we're here to do today. So I chose Prayers on the Beads of Love, a prayer poem. I am saying my prayers on the beads of my love, strung with devotion. I hold to no names, God, Spirit, Brahma, Christ, Shankara, Krishna, Buddha, or Muhammad, for they are all thine. Sometimes I use all of these names, for I know thou lovest to take many names. In thy cosmic plays, on the stage of centuries, and in the myriad appearances, thou hast taken unto thyself many names, but I know thou hast one changeless name, perennial joy. I played with thee many times, I sang thy songs on thine ocean bosom of all life. Thou didst nurture me as a tiny drop of life. I remember thy warm touches of centuries whenever I returned home to thee after the chill of separation. Again, and in this day of time, I play with thee and I sing thy songs. So I'd like to begin with a story of St. Francis. St. Francis and his beloved friend, Brother Leo, were walking in the forest one time together. And St. Francis just had this inspiration to ask his friend, what do you think is the highest attribute of God? Brother Leo said, I think it's love. St. Francis said, God is a great lover, but I don't think it's that. And so Brother Leo said, how about wisdom? The path of wisdom is very powerful. It's a direct route to God. Nope, he shook his head, St. Francis. He said, on the spiritual path, our greatest attribute is patience. It is the rarest and most precious pearl. When I think of God's patience for all of us, I burst into tears. God's waiting for each one of us to transcend our ego, to transcend our fear into love. And God's patience is always there, like a beloved mother or father, always knowing with perfect faith that we're going to do the best thing and we're going to show up for ourselves in very beautiful, meaningful ways and explore these beautiful spiritual teachings and paths. We're so trusted. But then St. Francis went into meditation and in great ecstasy, and he drew into his brother Leo with him. And as he came out of that, St. Francis said, Mother, bear witness to this oath. In imitation to God's patience, I will never hold feelings of judgment or hostility towards everyone. If I think badly of another person, Yogananda was so clear, it's a boomerang, it comes right back to us, that all judgments are arrogance, that judgment is a separateness belief system, that we have to rise above it. And we can say, oh, there's good judgment and there's bad judgments, but truly rising above judgment is seeing that God knows what he's doing. He doesn't make mistakes. And that each one of us have to go through our own unique set of circumstances to clear our own unique karma. We need it. So sometimes it might look like I'm a lunatic out there, but something's happening. I'm clearing something up. I'm freeing myself from something, some way of seeing the world, some behavior pattern, whatever it might be. At Kripalu, which I'm going to go into seclusion this week for 4 days, it has on the sign, I've told you about it before, be kind, for everyone you meet is fighting a hard battle. So everyone on the spiritual path, it's such a blessing to get that awakening, but it's a hard battle, like the Bhagavad Gita, and Arjuna, he had to take up his sword and he had doubts and he had fears, but he trusted implicitly God and Krishna. And that trust is what helped him to win the war. And that's what will help us to win our inner war over the darkness, over our ego's way of taking us on side trips, right? And distractions and looping around instead of going on our path, with everything we have. So God has no judgment for us. He knows that we're all living the lessons of our life and moving through life in the best impossible way. And he has such passion. Sometimes, I was walking on Narragansett Beach the other morning. It was so beautiful. The sun was rising. I was with my puppies and I was just seeing everyone there. And it's a spiritual path. You're walking on that path. This is an experience. And the water and the sun and the morning dew on the sand and the salt air, it was so beautiful. And I was like, this is what God sees. God sees all these little children that are just walking with him on that path, just just waking up in the morning to want to be in beauty, want to see God in that morning and in that beautiful nature and fresh air. It's such a beautiful path is nature. And so each one of our paths are unique. And sometimes, I get lost sometimes, and I really want to go into the found. Sometimes I get pulled outward. I get too busy. I kept doing things, or I get caught up in a belief pattern or a spiral of fear or shame or something coming up. But I know the found's there. Just back. How do I tune back in? How can I, maybe it's showing up here. Maybe it's staying in the teachings. Maybe it's deepening my meditation practice or going for a walk on the beach. There was something so beautiful, and I was chanting all the way there in the car. My puppies think I'm an amazing singer, and we just had this best, sing fest in the car. I heard a little like, oh. But we have to be our best self. That's what we're happening to do today. This is what it's about. We take that higher road. We choose authenticity. We live our Dharma to the best of our abilities. There's a sweet story I once heard about this little 6-year-old girl who visited Ananda village with her mom. And that night she had like a dream. And a lot of times when we're on retreat, you have these cosmic dreams, and she had this dream that there were all fairies around the pond at Ananda village, and she was walking with them, and they were so beautiful, and they were so happy. And they came to her and they said, "We love it here, but we're having a hard time finding places that we're really welcome. Can you help us find that?" And as she grew up, she felt that was her true Dharma. Her Dharma was to keep finding places of high frequency, of beauty, and of love, and to find them and to live in them and create them. And that's one of the beautiful laws of attraction. And it's a beautiful teaching of Yogananda that 95% of our environment, that's how powerful it is. Our environment is 95% the most powerful thing. So, I can go to the bakery and decide I'm not going to eat any sugar, but like being in that bakery, 95% of the time I will have sugar. That environment is powerful. It really is. And keeping ourselves together and meditating together and joining in on Sundays and joining in on the music. It's just so important to stick together in this, and to find that deep community. And that's it. Part of all of our Dharma is to live in high places of vibration and frequency. And, every week we talk about, we'll read it in a little while for the people who are just here. I met these new people at Tavern by the Sea restaurant the other night, and they was like, "I want to come visit." And I was like, "I'm doing Sunday service, and I'm so happy you're here." And so we do a Sunday service and a Festival of Light. And it's the story of all of us. It's the story of awakening, right? And when we start to awaken, it is like an angel comes and taps us and says, "Amanda, it's time to wake up." And it's like, and it's hard to wake up at first, but then we'll help you. We'll find you the right teachers. We'll find you the right places to go. We'll find you the right satsang, the right support. And then it starts to happening, the awakening. But our ego is like, no, it's like, no way, right? And it starts creating resistance. And so the second part of the spiritual path that the bird goes through is the revolt, right? And it starts thinking, we start having all these beautiful experiences at first, and then the hard work starts. And then we have to face parts of ourselves that are not easy to look at, or some of the ways we've behaved, or some of the ways we've seen things. I remember really spending some time on this one part. It says, what I thought was light was really darkness. When I thought I was living a life that was really in the light, but there was a lot of elements of darkness that I wasn't able to see. So as we awaken, divine perception shows us how we really need to see and how we really know when that light truly is authenticity, and when we're really living in that high power, that high frequency of that light. So that bird goes on a holy mission to become a child of God. And that's what we're all on, a holy path, a holy mission back to the divine. And finding our way back means a refinement of our soul. It means Yogananda said, God's a judgmental person out there. He has these qualities of joy, of love, of wisdom, the more we have light in our life, the more we have tuned into true power, the staying power of being present, the more we develop these qualities of peace and calmness, that's how we know God is living in us more and more and more, and that light is living in us more and more and more. The darkness can't withstand the light. It just dissipates. It's not a process of fighting the darkness like that. We just bring the light in, bring the light in. And that's a beautiful story that Babaji told when a devotee came to him and said, intercede, Babaji. We are having a terrible war. There's so much darkness in this world. There's so many people that are filled with it. And Babaji said, my job is not to remove the darkness from the world. My job is to bring in the light. And that's the law of entrainment. The higher frequency of light, it dissipates it. It frees us from any darkness, any of those negative thoughts. I'm not good enough, or I didn't do something right, whatever it might be. It's all ready to let go. The quest. So the ego rebels in conquering fear, and we seek God within our true self. That's the key. And in that quest, we all go through that quest. We explore different things. I remember there was a time on New Year's Day that I said, I am going to check out every other Sunday, all different spiritual places. And I went to the Providence Zen Center. I went to the Spiritualist Church. I checked out. And then I walked into Ananda and I saw Ari and Prim Shanti in our Hopkinton place. And I was in the Wellness Institute, and it was part of for holistic counseling, it was part of the book I had to read. I had to read like 10 different books to graduate from the program. And I'm like, I read that book. And I was like, didn't even feel true to me, but I was home. I was home in that moment. And I just knew that Yogananda Guru is a remover of darkness, that he was going to guide me out of suffering, pain, fear, and all the lostness, and live in the found. I just knew that was what was in store for me. And I just felt so grateful that I deserved to serve in a big way. I don't know how I became a minister, but he does. So we'll talk about it when I leave. So Dharma is self-awareness. We have to live our Dharma. Like, we have to find that beautiful voice. We cleared the chakras, right? That intuitive wisdom lives within our chakras, where we start saying, I want to start doing this, or this feels really great for me. I'm going to start a little meditation group, or whatever it might be. We'll always support that. But just listen to that little voice. How do you live your best life? That's what we want to do. God wants us to live our best life, filled with light and joy and happiness. And that's the fourth stage. We all must come to redemption. All of us. We're all going to get there. But with God's patience, we'll get there too, in our own divine timing. But it's like, we must come to redemption. This is the path of light. We offer the little light that is in us into God's blazing light of infinity to become pure channels of love for all. That's the path. So the path of self-discovery through meditation is the path of peace. And there's a beautiful documentary that I watched not too long ago, and it's called Doing Time, Doing Vipassana. And it's in New Delhi. There was a prison filled with really, really murderous criminals. And I knew warden come in, and she introduced Vipassana meditation, which is really going in with self-inventory and being present within. And, there was a man there who committed many, many murders in a gang, and he joined this small number of prisoners. And little by little, the darkness started to move away, and the light of this small group grew and grew and grew. And people started to clean themselves up. They took pride in their little spots, their cells. They started to serve. So huge. They started to help the people that were some of the inmates that were elderly, and they needed help. They started to serve and help each other. They became a community. But the most important thing is they rose their consciousness. And because of it, it rippled out through the prison and became a place that was beautiful and holy and light. And that one prisoner who was in that gang, beforehand, he had no remorse. He didn't care. He didn't understand. He was like, they all deserved it. He was rotting in his soul with like revenge and anger and fear and doubt and resistance. And through that meditation, he contacted one of the family members of one of the person that he murdered. And they came in and met with him, and they came in over time. And he had such redemption in his heart. He had such truly, he was empathetic and really felt so bad for his actions and didn't really understand them, but now he really did and took full responsibility. Over time, they came visited and they brought him part of his family. They adopted him, right? And so in that adoption, they brought him into their circle where he had felt so alone, so unwanted, so alone in this world. He became part of something so beautiful, so light, and so big in this world. And we're all in our own prisons of darkness. We're all in it until we're not. We're all stuck in our ways or stuck in our feeling of lack. We're not good enough. There's not enough time or energy. But more and more and more, we have this power within us. Peace must be found, Yogananda said, in the private heart through divine contact. That's what happened. They joined together, social transformation through meditation, and they created a unity and brought them into peace and harmony. And that's Yogananda's mission. That's the path of peace, the path of self-discovery through meditation. There are many, many paths to truth, and some of us are more tuned into love or tuned into wisdom. Yogananda was a Prem Aratar. He was so tuned into love, and that's how he awoke. Sri Yukteswar was self-disciplined, and the Jnana wisdom avatar. He was an avatar of deep, deep truth and wisdom. And Lahiri, where we celebrate his beautiful life and his Mahasamadhi this week. And he said, when Babaji said, "Here's Kriya Yoga, you will be awakened, you will be enlightened. This is the path. It is a direct path. It's a jet plane engine route to God. You can do this." And he said, anybody who's a sincere seeker, please, Babaji, please let them all have this great, great technique, because it is through this technique that many, many people will be liberated. And that's in the autobiography of Yogi. He wanted it for all. And he's watching over all of us in our meditation practices, helping us to dive deep and to really tune in to our own unique path to God. So there's a story of really trusting God with all our hearts. And I thought about, my mom, who had some memory issues, and she would forget things. She said, "I'm forgetting." And I would say, "Mom, do you trust God?" And she said, "I trust God." And we would go through the day. And, I'm asking myself that, maybe it's my mom coming through me, but I get into a little doubt, or gosh, I'm going into seclusion. I really feel like I need it because I've been pulled out a lot. And it's just like, I trust God to take me where I need to go, when I need to go there. That's it. I trust God. And that was so simple, but my mom found such peace in that, and that was her path of truly trusting in God. And I'll just talk about, before we end, Krishna and Narada. Krishna was a great teacher, and his student Narada, he wanted to teach him a really, really important lesson about the path of life. And so they went out into a village, and they pretended that they were beggars, and they knocked on the door of a beautiful, beautiful mansion. And the rich merchant answered the door and said, "Get out of here. What are you doing here? I have nothing for you." Slammed the door. And Narada looked at Krishna, and Krishna just, And then they continued, and they went to a farmhouse where there was an old farmer and his wife, and he had an old cow, and very, very simple. And they knocked on the door, and he's, "Oh, come in, come in, come in." And he gave them some milk and some rice that he had, and they shared their dinner. They gave them their bed, and they went into sleep, and the hospitality and the love and the peace in the house was so beautiful. The next morning, they get up to continue their journey through the village, and they went to the center of the village, and the villager said, "Did you hear? The rich merchant overnight inherited millions of dollars, and the poor farmer lost his last cow." And Narada said, "How can that be fair, Krishna? How is that fair? That does not seem fair at all." And Krishna said, "The merchant's wealth and possessions will make him unhappy. So by receiving even more money, he will learn more quickly that only suffering leads to worldly attachments." So that fleeting happiness turns into like, wow, like I have all this, but still my heart doesn't feel happy. And the poor farmer, that last cow, his last attachment. He's now free. Oh, so Narada just saw that and was able to really see Krishna's deep, deep wisdom. Remember, the ways of God are filled with love and wisdom. We must trust God every step of the way on the path home, says Krishna. And, I just want to say we had a beautiful, beautiful retreat 2 weeks ago in Litchfield, Connecticut, and it was such a joy to be part of it. People were initiated into Kriya Yoga, and we just all came together, everybody on the East Coast, and Nayaswami Jaya is such a beautiful, beautiful soul, and he talked about the blissful devotee. That was the topic, the blissful devotee. And he just didn't have to talk because he was just like, whoa, he's just joy, 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 joy. And he told this beautiful story of his wife, Sadhana Devi. They've been at Ananda for many, many years. And she has dementia now, but for 52 years, she never missed her meditation. For 52 years, never missed it. He said, I've missed it sometimes. He says, but now every once in a while, she comes into the meditation room and she takes her malas and she stares with deep love and devotion at one of the masters. And that's her practice, right? That's her informal, beautiful practice. A devotion to love doesn't die within us, no matter what happens. I just really was so touched by that story. She's just such a beautiful example that we find our own true path. We are very blessed. So coming here, maybe what's happening here? Are you really tuning into Jesus and his capacity for forgiveness, or Babaji, the great avatar that can help us to transcend all limitations and live highly? And or is your yoga practice needing to be your meditation and yoga with Lahiri needing to be elevated, or Sri Yukteswar, maybe some self-discipline, or Yogananda, that love in our. Maybe we need to really understand that our job is to be the example of unconditional love into the world. But when we are drawn to a self-realized master, it is one of the most powerful gifts we can ever receive on the spiritual path. And I'll end with this letter from Yogananda. And he wrote this to you, and he wrote it to you, and you, and you, and you, and you. He wrote this to each one of us. So in your heart, listen to what he had to say to all of us. To my dear friends, in all lands and in all worlds, greetings and goodwill. Wherever you are, whoever you are, or whatever race, color, or creed, I send you my love and the pledge of my loyalty. You who for thousands of years or for only a day have worked and fought for justice, freedom, and truth, receive my gratitude and devotion. You who dwell in palaces or hovels, in cities or jungles, in mansions or dungeons, if in your hearts there's an urge toward higher, better living and loftier ideals, believe me when I say I am your friend, and that I count you blessed friends of mine. Many of you I have known in the past, and some of you I have never seen, but I think that in God's appointed time, I shall meet each one of you face to face and give you proof of my affection. However, it matters little that we may or are not together, nor does it matter that time and space may separate us by almost infinite distances. The only thing that counts is that we are friends, working together in a common cause, the cause of righteousness and the expansion of consciousness of the children of the Most High. Although I see you not, I often feel your presence near or thrill with the noble thoughts that you send out to find their home in minds attuned to yours. Although you may never read the words which I am penning now, I declare to you that you shall feel the vibrations of tenderness and kindliness which emanate from me all the time. Our work, our love, our purpose are one. March on, dear friends, to higher, brighter goals. Continue in your dreams of happier days and in deeds of service to your kind. Protect the torch of faith in the winds of doubt, and let no storm disturb your peace of mind. Farewell, dear friends of mine, until we meet again. Yogananda. Amen. And now we'll have our basket is right